Hey everyone, my name is Daniel Roddick, and I am super excited to be moderating this fireside chat today with my lovely guest of honor, Guru from CommerceIQ and Priya from SoftBank. As a short introduction, I've had the privilege of following along Guru's journey for many, many years. And I've also had the privilege of working at another SoftBank-backed company as well. So hopefully I can bring that perspective to our conversation today. But before I get started, I really would love to know where everyone is watching from today. So if you could just drop in the comments where you're watching from, what city, what state, what country. Would love to know where everyone's dialing in from. And hopefully you can make some friends in the chat with one another. And as we go through this conversation, this is really meant for you guys. So I appreciate it if you guys throw in your questions as we go along, and we'll try to bring it up on screen so that we can incorporate that into the discussion. But with that said, I'd love to introduce both of our speakers who are now on screen. So maybe Priya, if you can get us started. And for those who aren't familiar with SoftBank and who you are, would just love a quick introduction of your background and a bit about SoftBank as well.
Sure. So my name is Priya Sai Prasad. I'm a partner at SoftBank Vision Fund. And SoftBank was started back in 1981 by Masayoshi Son. And we launched the first of its kind Vision Fund 1. It's a $100 billion fund back in 2017. And now we're investing at a Vision Fund 2, which is a $50 billion fund. And the big thesis and bet here is to identify category creating companies with massive markets and massive tailwinds behind them to go after and back these entrepreneurs and founding teams that are creating such value.
Amazing. And Guru, I'd love the same for those who aren't familiar with CommerceIQ and your journey. Would love to know a bit more. Where did this idea even come from? Who are you, and what's the exciting thing you've been building over the past couple of years?
First off, very excited to do this, and thanks for everybody who's tuning in. My name is Guru. My background is all mostly machine learning and e-commerce, and most recently I've started to be also a company builder based on that bedrock that I'd actually started my professional career with. So the background in machine learning, worked at Amazon in the very inceptive stages where we were actually building out the automated vendor management. Essentially, the goal that was posed to the retail team was, how do you scale to 100 million vendors and seller entities without having to add and scale headcount? Because if you had to do that, you would probably be hiring about 10 million vendor managers. So how do you do that? How do you manage a mid-tier brand, let's say even a small brand working out of, say, in India, Indonesia, or Europe, with the same efficacy of you managing a Procter & Gamble in the US? So the only way to do that was automating the entire vendor management process, which is the category management process. And Amazon did that very effectively. And I had the privilege of leading that initiative for Amazon. And with that as a background, I had this extended epiphany during my time at Amazon saying, wow, the entire buy side of retail, if you think about the buy and sell side of this, buy side of retail, which Amazon represents, is becoming extremely algorithmic. The sell side, which is brands, they're still carrying bags, sending Excel spreadsheets, making a phone call, saying, "Hey, can I talk to you?" and discuss what purchase orders you need to be filing and stuff like that. The sell side, the brands are still extremely operating in a manual manner. By the way, that's how they have been successful for the last 5 decades. But unfortunately, when the retail is sort of transforming into an algorithmic workplace, how do you sort of work with an algorithm on the buy side of retail? So that's when left my day job and have had the privilege of working with some of the best brightest minds in this industry to actually build the sell side algorithm for the entire retail world. It's more of a $5 trillion market in the worldwide. And we are essentially building the sell-side algorithm for the the global retail market.
Amazing. And thanks everyone for dropping your comments in. It seems we have coverage almost from coast to coast. And so I appreciate it. As you guys are listening in, please start dropping in your questions. I'm going to start trying to incorporate that into the discussion. But I'd love to build on what Guru was just saying, Priya, and hear this from the SoftBank perspective. And maybe we can start a bit more high level. Lots of us in tech kind of know of SoftBank, but it would be helpful to understand, like SoftBank doesn't just back any kind of company. This is a big problem that CommerceIQ is solving. And so could you unpack a little bit more of like what exactly is SoftBank's investment thesis and what in particular stood out about CommerceIQ versus I'm sure all the other companies you run into that might be trying to tackle similar problems in retail and e-commerce?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great question. I almost think about it as three items that we look for consistently. One is we want to make sure that the company and the product is going after a massive market, right? We want to make sure that the TAM is massive, and also there's a lot of tailwinds behind that TAM to support growth over the next decade and more than the next decade because we're very long-term investors. And then the third is, is this the team to back, and do they have the domain expertise, and are they the team that takes this to a massive category? And there's a lot of room for category creation, so it's not for the faint of heart. So is this the team to do that, right? And with CommerceIQ, the answer for all three was a resounding yes. And it's no secret that e-commerce penetration has continued to rapidly rise. The pandemic has only further accelerated that. And so it was very clear to us that online channels are increasingly becoming a very big strategic priority for large brands. And so CommerceIQ's platform essentially allows these large brands across the world to truly win in e-commerce. And the market's massive. There's truly a why now catalyst here. Companies been rapidly growing, and Guru and team really bring in incredible domain expertise from companies like Amazon. So it's sort of the perfect founder market fit, if you will.
And before I jump into my next question to you, Guru, I wanted to just pause on when you say team and like this is the team that can take you there. I would love to know what is your process to actually understand is this a team or not, and what are some of is there any example of something you learned in the process talking with Guru and team that made you know what, yes, this group has something special that I haven't seen that could really solve this hard problem.
Right, right. No, it's a great question. I think we had several meetings, Guru and I, and Guru with our team. And, the one thing that was truly interesting is we came in with a prepared mind where we had a thesis around e-commerce enablement. We sort of knew what we wanted to invest in and what the stack looked like. But Guru's refined insights took our thesis, almost 10 levels forward. And I find that when you come in with a prepared mind and an entrepreneur can completely push your thought process in a fundamentally better way, and also not just the articulation of it, but when we did a bunch of customer references, both formal and informal, it was very clear from every single customer the true value proposition, why they're renewing, why that net dollar retention rate is so high. And so that made it incredibly clear that it was a product that's built by a team that knows exactly what they're doing.
Well, I think that's a good segue into what I wanted to dig in with you, Guru, is to replace 10,000 vendor managers is non-trivial, and for it to work so elegantly for a customer is non-trivial. And so behind the software that you've built, there's a lot of hard technical problems that you and the team are solving. Could you kind of share, behind the kimono, what are some of the really difficult things that CommerceIQ has had to solve to actually make this a reality?
Daniel, we're just getting started. We've made tremendous progress over the last 4 years or so, and the product is one of the most sophisticated. It's actually the most sophisticated product out there in the market, and we also have the largest engineering and data science team in our market. And I'm an engineer by trade, and fundamentally believe in building a very strong foundation from a product and engineering perspective, and that's what we've done. And of course, once you achieve product market fit, then pour dollars to scale go to market. And that's what we've been doing. One of the things which, to understand that the complexity of this, let me just paint a picture, which is, if you look at the pie chart, imagine a pie chart of the US e-commerce market. That pie chart has $1 trillion in it in the US. That is, US e-commerce market is $1 trillion. Out of that, think about, just answer to yourself, how much do you think is the direct to consumer? You hear so much about Shopify, Demandware, a lot of headless commerce companies which are going after this. Brand.com, you go to Colgate.com or BananaRepublic.com, Nike.com. Think about how much big it is. It's actually only 15%. Only $150 billion in the US happens through D2C websites. $850 billion, 85% of the market, happens through indirect to consumer, which is Amazon, Instacart, Kroger.com, GoPuff.com, and Walmart.com, and others. And so, if you think about, and that's what we call retail e-commerce management, or REM, which is addressing the 85% of the e-commerce puzzle. Now, again, that's where therein lies the complexity, right? If you have so much complexity and software being built, let's say in companies like Shopify and Demandware that has been on it for so much time, think about how much software and complexity that needs to be built for 7 to 8x a bigger market, 7 to 8x a number of complexities and things that we have to solve in order to achieve those dollars. So that's essentially what the foundation of why this software is complex. And the way we have achieved that is essentially tying in a lot of connected systems which used to be very disjointed. For instance, supply chain was very disjointed from retail media. We've connected it for the first time for our customers. Digital shelf used to be disconnected from a promotion engine. That is, let's say there's a price war that's happening, then there was still retail media or promotions being spent on it. We've connected those things, and we've connected that in real time. So the complexity came in terms of connecting very different types of things that need to be solved for a successful operations of a retail e-commerce management website or a platform, which is e-commerce operations, supply chain, retail media, competitive intelligence, promotion intelligence, shopper behavior. All these things are essentially being connected in real time for the first time. That's what's been driving tremendous amount of value to our customers. And when Priya talks about the net dollar retention, which is essentially saying how much are our customers investing in us, and how is that improving year over year? Because that sort of gives you the real deal, saying are customers happy enough to invest more and vote with their dollars? And the answer in our case is again has been we've been very lucky enough to work with some great customers. It's a pretty big number. It's a top decile in the industry in terms of not net dollar retention, which is our customers continue to really provide that increased level of partnership in that. So the complex software being built for 7x a bigger market than what a Shopify went behind, and 7x potentially a market opportunity or a size of company that we could be creating in this, and that then showing up in our output metrics of net dollar retention, that customers are loving it. That gives us the confidence to constantly keep investing in it and pour in a lot more dollars across the board from product and engineering, and now also scaling up sales and marketing machines.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like there's just like a, a sheer amount of opportunity and a sheer amount of work to be done, even though you've made so much progress. We're just kind of scratching the surface. And this is really a question for both of you, but maybe we can get your perspective first, Priya, of, okay, so there's a lot of work to be done. And so naturally, we're CommerceIQ is looking for lots of people to join the team. And in your perspective as kind of an outsider looking at the business, when someone's trying to decide whether or not to join a company like CommerceIQ versus, either a more established company or an earlier stage company, what do you think is special about a company at this stage, especially with the financial backing that SoftBank has given in this most recent round? And how should someone think through their career path and where this might take them?
Yeah, it's a good question because it's a Series D stage company. We've raised a large amount of capital recently. So I'd say at this point, but also what you mentioned is true, Daniel, where we're only at the beginning of the game here. We're just barely scratching the surface of this massive, massive TAM that we're going after. And so if you want to be part of something almost a phenomenon over the next decade and be able to truly effectuate change and shape a category and the way a category ends up getting created. I think this is the spot for it. And the fact that Guru and team have spent the last 4 years truly building out a world-class product is a benefit. So you're taking a product that works incredibly well, you're making it better, and you're creating a category, a movement, an ecosystem, and community around that category. So I think it takes an entrepreneurial person, a person who's highly driven to truly measure impact in a quick sort of manner, versus if you're at a much larger company, impact is harder to measure, right?
And when you've looked at alumni of SoftBank companies, where do you often, how does that stint, whether it's a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, what trajectories have you seen, being at a company that you've been investing in? Where does that take them?
Yeah, I don't think there's a single answer for that. I think each sort of individual is different, but I see so many career opportunities open up either within the company where you start, let's say, at CommerceIQ and then end up getting promoted over time, and you continue growing tremendously with the company and join the management team, etc. You can also transition to other companies within our portfolio. I think the vast experience and the experience that you'll be learning in such a quick time frame is very transferable. And also, SoftBank is truly a global platform. So when we back companies, it's with the thesis that it is going to be a global phenomenon. And so that sort of global mindset from day one is something that I think everyone gets.
Yeah. I mean, you actually tee up another, I would say, hard problem, on the non-technical side, but it's actually the company building side. And so I'd love to build on this question with you, Guru, in that, when you and I have chatted, you always talk about culture often, or always really starts from the CEO and the founding team and the leadership team. And so I'd love to understand your perspective on generally, how do you view building culture? What does that look like at CommerceIQ? And how are you actually doing this at a global company? Because that's incredibly difficult to do. Some might argue even harder to do than actually building the product in many ways. And so I just love your perspective on what the culture is like and how you've been trying to shape it.
We are very intentful about building the right culture. Daniel, we always, in fact, in our board meetings, we talk about people, product, and profits in that order. People first, and people build companies and not the other way around. We really take that to heart. I sort of summarize our culture in very simply saying, in a very simplistic manner, by saying we are building a team of GNACs, good-natured ass kickers, right? We don't take ourselves seriously. We do take what we do and what our team does very seriously, what our customers' problems are very seriously. And we kick butt in doing that. And the way that's, of course, the intention. Now you have to put mechanisms in place to essentially drive that right culture. And we've put mechanisms all the way through, from recruiting the right folks and building the right team, the culture from that perspective, to giving opportunities for promotions and sort of rising up the ladder for folks who actually demonstrate the right cultural values, and so on and so forth. So I think that's been a big focus areas. Our values, essentially, they are not. We don't think about those values. I actually don't even remember a time where we actually printed out the values and stuck on our walls or whatever. We don't believe in that, but we live it. We live it every single day, every single minute. And the values are really summed up by three Qs that I talk about: IQ, EQ, and LQ. IQ, obviously, this is a very intense analytical world that we live in, especially in e-commerce. Things are changing, ephemeral. There's a lot of science and math that goes behind making customers successful. So we look for analytical minds, and there's a lot of bias to action in getting shit done, and high degree of problem solving that we expect, and all the folks that we work with are some of the brightest minds when it comes to that. And I've been very gifted and have been very humbled to actually work with folks who are way better problem solvers than I am. So IQ is a key element, but the equal element is equal to other two elements as well, which is EQ and LQ. Now, talk about EQ, which is emotional quotient, is very critical, especially in this day and age, Daniel, that we live in, where it's we are at home, work and life are getting integrated. We need to balance those out. We put strong mechanisms over there. For instance, every last Friday of every month is a recharge day. Even though we have an unlimited vacation policy, we force everybody to take that last Friday off. Preset meetings are supposed to be between 8 and 5, right? It's really for exception cases that it can go beyond 5 o'clock, but we really try to get our work done between 8 and 5. And if you cannot get our work done between 8 and 5, then you're not prioritizing well enough, right? So that's another mechanism that we've put in place. Other and just From an EQ perspective, I saw the other. There was we in the last 1 year, for instance, we had to deal with a lot of COVID-related issues. I'll give you an example where at a point last year, there were a lot of our colleagues who were getting stressed out because because India was essentially running out of oxygen cylinders, and one of our HR directors essentially went in and just made a spot decision to go buy 100 oxygen cylinders from, I don't know where she got it, and she put it in the basement of our office and sent an all hands email saying, hey, if you guys, any of you, and for your immediate friends or family or whoever that you know is in need for an oxygen cylinder, go grab it. No questions asked. Here's the keys and go grab it. So these are types of things that we do, and it's been ingrained in sort of really taking care of one another, and in that. Another element of EQ is very important, which is customer obsession. When you think, a lot of companies talk about customer focus, but we truly focus on that value of customer obsession, which is an EQ, which is to truly understand the customer. It's not okay to just love the customer. You actually need not love the customer. You actually have to understand the customer and what they are going to be making, what is going to make them successful, and have the gravitas to go and challenge them. That saying, okay, well, you're asking me for this, but I don't know if that's the right question to ask. You should be asking me for that. And that's the way to go and win the e-commerce market. So EQ, both from a people and customer perspective, is important. And final Q is LQ, which is the learning quotient. Learning is so important in our market. We cannot rest on our laurels. What got us here is not going to get us to the next stage. So we have to constantly evolve. The market is constantly evolving. Every single month, there's something new in e-commerce. Last month, GoPuff announced that they're going to be launching a retail media thing. And 2 months ago, Amazon came out and said that because of labor shortages and stuff like that, they're increasing their the shipping prices on at-home delivery on Whole Foods. And those things are starting to have an impact on sales. And you have to constantly sort of learn and see how you're going to be helping our customers win better and adapt to those things. So these are areas which we constantly look for, and in our people, in a way that, are you really resting on your laurels, or are you truly coming with a growth mindset, which we call LQ? So essentially building a team of GNACs who embody IQ, EQ, and LQ.
Amazing. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up, Priya, I wanted to kind of broaden the discussion to a little bit about the future, because we've been spending a lot of time on CommerceIQ and the inner workings of the business, which is incredibly fascinating. But when you take your perspective of looking at the problems we're trying to solve in the industry, and what's happening in the future of retail and e-commerce, if you're an individual who's just like, I'm just excited to solve problems in this space, regardless of company or whatever it is, what are the problems that you think people should be paying attention to and spending time prioritizing their efforts and trying to solve, that you think would set them up for success to really be tackling the meaty problems in the future of commerce?
Yeah. Maybe I can take a step back and answer this as, we've been spending a lot of time, as I mentioned, in thinking through what that future of commerce looks like. And I think there's a fundamental sort of shift in consumer expectations that we're seeing. The Amazon Prime phenomenon has really shifted consumer expectations around sort of instant gratification, free shipping, competitive pricing, a very seamless checkout experience, essentially. And we're seeing brands facing increasing cost pressure as they try to sort of meet with these emerging consumer expectations. And so competition in the e-commerce space has rapidly increased. Nailing fulfillment at sort of higher volumes is becoming increasingly critical, not just as a differentiator, but sort of as a basic need to remain in business and compete against some of the largest e-commerce players. So I think with those sort of trends in mind, there's actually a lot of room to impact. I think delivering a delightful customer experience is increasingly driving sales and retention for e-commerce companies. And a solution like a CommerceIQ that brings sales together with inventory management, with finance, with the whole stack of supply chain, I think and that visibility in real time and the ability to predict the future for these large consumer brands is truly impactful.
And for you, Guru, if you are able to share us a little bit of some insider knowledge for the folks who are tuning in live today, um, what is maybe the one most exciting thing for you that's on the roadmap that you're working on? That's sounds like probably tackling some of these problems that Priya is highlighting that you can share with the audience today.
Yeah, I would shed light on supply chain, Daniel. It's one of the hardest problems to solve, but the companies who solve it just nail it. Like look at back in the day from like GE with the Six Sigma to Dell to Amazon to Walmart, even like companies who have nailed it have been able to have long-term victories. And it takes time, it takes patience, it takes a lot of energy to build sophistication in that. And we're actually going through a massive transformation in our industry. The transformation is what we call it often in a way that in the last 20 years we've focused on just-in-time supply chain. Next 20 years we're going to be building just-in-case supply chain, which is just in case my labor shortages happen, just in case a war breaks out, just in case a ship gets stuck in the Suez Canal, just in case inflation starts to affect my food prices. How do you deal with that? You cannot expect a Six Sigma input. However, you do need to provide a Six Sigma output to your customers, to your shoppers, and to your P&L. So what we have embarked on, and for the last 3 years, we've been developing a ton of software to help our customers from a supply chain perspective, all the way from band-aids on the top to stop the bleeding to really solving root causes. And we've made a significant amount of progress, but still I feel we are in day one on that. And giving you an example, I'll give you an example. Our customers today do not accelerate their out of stock situation by investing in retail media. You go on Amazon, it's very easy to find an example where you have 5 left in stock, 10 left in stock, and brands are still spending dollars and they're accelerating an out of stock situation. Why would they do that? Well, it's happening because supply chain is disjointed from retail media, right? So what we have done is let's connect it first of all, and connect it in real time. So none of our customers today they face that problem. So that's just one mere example of, say, solving a supply chain from a band-aid. Like I wouldn't even call it a band-aid, but like an easy fix, right? But then we've actually gone out and solved it in very the hard problems behind the scenes, which is things like automating your shortages and revenue recovery, automating or applying time series and reinforcement learnings and neural networks to do a better job in forecasting, and doing a number of predictive modeling and NLP for analyzing your the leading indicators that are happening and things like that. So we're essentially solving those problems, and I would say we're very passionate about it. And frankly, a lot of us actually come from a supply chain background, which helps a lot. And we're very pleased to see our customers succeed in some of these hard challenges that they face.
Amazing. Well, yeah, you timed it very well. I think we're coming up on time at the end of our show. So, we covered so much ground here. I think for anyone who's listening, as you can see, there's a lot of difficult things involved in trying to solve the the real meat of what is e-commerce, which is the 85% that is non-D2C. That is where, you know, most of us shop. I'm trying to furnish a new place, and I'm going mostly to the 85%, and that's where I'm buying most of my things. So I think if you all reflect personally on where you're doing your shopping, it's a lot of the places Guru and team, now Priya, who's part of the team on the board, is spending time. So you know, thank you to both of you for spending the time to share a little bit more about what's going on inside a growing unicorn company. And thanks everyone who tuned in online to watch. If you tuned in halfway, this recording will sit here on LinkedIn, and you know, hopefully we'll have you out for more shows and episodes like this on our LinkedIn feed. So thank you both for taking the time. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and hope you guys have a great rest of your Thursday and start to the long weekend if you're celebrating. So have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.